I want to thank Melissa. Thank you for that kind introduction. And again, the projects you mentioned were done because of the work you did when you were the district director. And I have to say, Commissioner, I always said this, and my wife used to work for the state controllers, but I always thought that the hardest working folks in the state were the Department of Transportation. They work through cold weather, lately a lot of hot weather, work at day and work at night. So I just have to say to the Department of Transportation, thank you so much. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, we just happened to be wearing pink. My wife Imelda, thank you, and then my daughter Katie also, and I just want to say thank you so much for the support. Let me say this, it really is a team effort, as you said it a while ago. And I certainly want to say the team effort, and in this case, let me thank our folks at I-69, I-27, Melissa again, all the sponsors for putting this together. But it really is a team effort, as you mentioned, Commissioner, from state government to local government to federal government, all working together. What the city council does, Mayor, is so important. What y'all do here, Ruben and Vanessa, it's very important. And that, when I say that, I apply to whether it's in Brownsville, like we got our friends from Brownsville, or Corpus Christi from other places. City and county government is so key to getting this monies down here. Richard, again, thank you so much for the work that you have done. And Eddie also, I used to know your dad also. His dad and I were roommates one year. And Eddie's been, both you, but your father's been a dear friend of mine for many years, so send my best. But I really appreciate what the state legislature has done. So thank you to y'all. And Commissioner, thank you for what you do. The Texas Department of Transportation plays a key role. They use Fund 6. I still remember when I was in the state approach. Fund 6 is very important. At that time, the Big Five was taking monies from Fund 6 for DPS. I don't know if they're still doing that. Not anymore, okay, good. But I know how important Fund 6 is for the Department of Transportation. Then of course, there's always an infusion from the federal government. What we did with the bipartisan infrastructure is one of the biggest things that we could have done for the country, and put in monies not only for roads and bridges, but also for water and broadband. The state of Texas combined roads, bridges, water, broadband, over $30 billion, which is the largest infusion of dollars that the state of Texas has done in this area. And again, it's important, as the commissioner said a few minutes ago, as Melissa said, important. Not only is it the population, but certainly it's not only for non-commercial, but it's also for commercial, and that's why I want to spend my time talking for the commercial part of it. When you look at Laredo, you will see that 38% of all the trade between the U.S. and Mexico is here in Laredo, just Laredo. 38% of everything between the U.S. and Mexico comes through Laredo. When you add the Laredo district, which is from Del Rio all the way down to Brownsville, you're talking about over 60% of all the trade between the U.S. and Mexico will come in through the Laredo district, which is Del Rio down to Brownsville. So it's an incredible amount, and that's why the emphasis on infrastructure is so key. And this is why I want to thank all of y'all for the work that you've done, whether it's in Brownsville, whether it's in Corpus Christi, whether it's in other parts of the area. It's all what's good for your particular city or your region is good for the state of Texas, and it's good for the nation. I don't represent Brownsville, I don't represent Corpus Christi, but I've been involved in making sure that we get monies to dredge and make those ports better, because then we can have LNG, whether it's from the Eagle Ford or it's from West Texas in your area, and be able to send that off to the rest of the world. And that means creating more jobs for our area. So I enjoy working with your legislators from that particular area to make sure that we have those seaports also but especially the land ports, because over 80% of all the trade and people come through land ports. I know we put a lot of emphasis on seaports and airports, but land ports are important for people and for trade also. Albert and your team over here, I want to thank the men and women in blue. I support the men and women in green, and as the ranking member on Homeland Appropriations, I put a lot of emphasis on the men and women in blue because they're important for tourism and they're important for trade. And Albert, thank you for what you are. And we want to make sure, and I haven't heard from your union, which means I think we're hiring enough people. I know sometimes we hear that we need more, but we're putting monies to hire men and women in blue, but also the non-intrusive equipment to make sure that we check for security, but at the same time keep the traffic moving itself. So we got resources that we put in for personnel, monies for non-intrusive technology, and what Mexico is doing. I got back from a CODEL with Senator John Cornyn, a bipartisan effort. We sat down for about 4.5 hours with President Almo and the whole cabinet one Sunday afternoon, and we went over several things. And there's a couple of things that are happening in Mexico that are going to be important to our area. I see dessert, so I'm going to cut in about 2 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. And one of the things that Mexico is doing is they have bought almost $900 million of technology from the same American companies that we use for non-intrusive. So that means at their ports, at our land ports on the other side, we'll have that security, and hopefully the technology from license plates or non-intrusive can talk to each other on the other side and on this side itself. Mexican Customs, as you know, the national headquarters will be moved from DF to Nuevo Laredo. And that again will be a boom when they move the national headquarters. It's like moving headquarters from Washington to Laredo. Oh, that's a good idea. But anyway, and they're moving that over there. And it's important to understand what our friends in Mexico are doing. I know we got some of our friends from Tamaulipas. Un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Friends from Nuevo León. Es un placer estar con ustedes también. And it's important to see what Tamaulipas, Nuevo León, but the rest of Mexico. There's a lot of things. Nearshoring, as we're trying to move companies away from China over to Mexico and to Latin America, it's important because the projections that we have, whether it's 5-8% increase a year, it's going to mean it's going to move over to a higher amount. It's also important to understand what's happening in Mexico, not only in this area, but the isthmus, and this is something that's very important. What they're doing, that the isthmus with Mexico, they're putting what I call a land Panama Canal by train and by road, trucks and by train, which means that they'll be able to connect the Pacific with the Atlantic through there, and they're moving fast. It's the Mexican military building this, and they're moving fast. The only thing we have to look at is Chinese investment, because on one side of the Pacific and the Atlantic side, who's doing the largest investment? Not American companies, but it's Chinese companies. In the industrial parks that we see in that area, in that isthmus, it's Chinese. In the Monterrey area, we're seeing a lot of Chinese investment. And again, we as Americans, the last thing we want to do is wake up and say, hey, the Chinese are right across, they're already there, but they're going to be doing a lot of investment, not only in trade and industrial parks, but also in critical minerals that are so important in Mexico and for the U.S. also. Trade, as you know, Commissioner, 17,000 traders a day, about 10,000 going this way, and then 7,000 down there. If you look and you put all the trucks that pass through the port of Laredo in 1 year and just line them up, and I double checked with Albert Flores, I was off by a couple points, it will go around the world twice, 2.4 times if you just line up the trucks that pass through Laredo. So trade is very, very important. And this is why we focused on I-69, and we've worked together for many years, and we're getting there. And I want to thank the coalition for the work that you all have done. And again, federal, state, and local governments, different across different governments, and thank you so much. I-27, as you know, we don't appropriate, we don't legislate in the appropriations unless we have to, but the authorization was put in the appropriations bill last year, and it got passed. We got the authorization, and this is something that was important, and usually we don't do that in appropriations, but we did it, and we got it done. This year, we're working with Senator Cruz. He hotlined the bill already for the naming. Means that when the Senate wants to move fast, they can move fast, and they pass it over, and then Joey Arrington and myself, my good friend Joey and I are carrying up the bill. I talked to Steve Scalise and to see if we can get it on the floor soon so we can have the name I-27 designated, going up all the way up West Texas. That will be important for West Texas. It will be important for everybody to get that done. And it's important for New Mexico, and hopefully we'll get Colorado on board also on that. So we got that, and again, Laredo is the only place that will have 4 interstates: I-35, I-69, I-27, and I-2 going south itself there. So infrastructure, the monies that you mentioned, and most of those projects are what we call 80-20. 80% from the federal government, 20%, but as team efforts, and then what the private sector does. They mentioned the Killam's on the Vallecillos. They mentioned Jeff, thank you again for what y'all did. Also, the mobility, and also the city and the county all working together to get projects down. Bridges, and I'll say this, Senator Cruz and myself are working on this issue. And again, it's a bipartisan effort from Vicente Gonzalez, Monica de la Cruz, myself, Tony Gonzalez, Cornyn, and Cruz working. We're looking at 2 different routes, but we'll put it together. And that basically means in the appropriations, we don't legislate, but we did legislate on this. My language is a little different from Senator Cruz, but we'll work out the differences. Mine is open to all bridges south and north, because I want to see trade north and south. So mine is open. His is a little tighter and has a time frame up to December of 24. And this, it helps the valley, as you know, but here in Laredo, it will help Laredo also. The 4-5, I'm going up this way, 4-5 bridge, the expansion of the World Trade Bridge, Mayor, from 8 to 18, lanes also, so it's going to expand. And then in Colombia, as you know, we are talking to the governor over there, and my suggestion to him was to do a dual, I don't know if you do it separate together, but they will expand their bridge, double the amount of bridge, the expansion, double it. And I asked them also for a bridge, a rail bridge also, so they can put a rail bridge also over there. As you know, one of the things we've been looking at is a connection between San Antonio, Laredo, and Monterrey. The Texas Department of Transportation studied everything from Corpus Christi to Laredo, and they said that the best route is to go San Antonio, Columbia, Laredo, all the way to Monterrey. By the way, the Mexicans already own their right-of-ways on the other side. They put the bridge. Hopefully that will encourage the Department of Transportation, where we can make it either both passenger and cargo also, what we're looking at. So that will happen on that. So we're working with both the governor from Tamaulipas and the governor of Nuevo León to make sure we expedite the bridges. Senator Cruz and myself, there are 2 different bills. The appropriations has to pass, so my language will pass. He added it to the NDAA, National Defense Authorization, another must-pass bill. So one way or the other, it's going to be done, and we're going to expedite this. And I've talked to the White House about this already, and the environmental quality of that group that we're looking at. And all we said, we don't want to take away from the environment. All we want to do is make it at the same time, like the prior administration did, and we were able to get the second bridge for Kansas City done super fast, and they're already doing the construction. I don't know if you've seen that, but they're already putting the the work over there also. So we just want to expedite because trade is not going to stop. Nearshoring, what Mexico's doing, it's going to just increase, and this is why it takes a team effort together, working together, state, local government, federal government, and it's the communications and the coordination that gets the job done. So, Commissioner, I want to thank you. I know we'll see Commissioner Alex meet after a while, also at 2 o'clock. But I want to thank you also, Alex also, and the rest of the commissioner for having the vision and the foresight for the work that you're doing. And again, I'll emphasize this again. If you take the Laredo district from Del Rio all the way to Brownsville, over 60% of everything, not between Texas and Tamaulipas and Nuevo Leon, but between the U.S. and Mexico coming in. So thank you so much. God bless you. And again, it certainly is a team effort. Gracias. Thank you so much.